It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. And if this is your first time tuning into my program, this is where we talk about all things residential real estate here in our market. And what I like to do is I like to take national, regional, local news, apply that to us here in the Low Country, so that if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, or if you just like to stay informed with what's going on in our market, you can do so. And hopefully at the end of this program, after tuning in, you're an informed consumer that can make some good choices with regard to real estate. If there's anything that I can do to help you out, if you're considering buying, selling, or investing in a home, and you're looking for a top agent, I have been in the top 1% of agents here since 2009. Would love the opportunity to earn your business. You can reach me personally at 843-345-1273. That's my cell phone, 843-345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, search the MLS, read a little bit more about me and my experience. And if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about what I do to market my properties for sale. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee, which very simply states I will sell your house in less than 2 months, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. Let me tell you about what I have planned for this show over the next hour. And I will say that I am live in the studio. If there's any questions, comments, concerns, complaints that you have, would love the opportunity to speak with you about whatever it is I might be able to help you with real estate related. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250. And of course, we rerun this show on Sundays at 10. So if it's Sunday, call me on my cell phone, 843-345-1273. But I want to talk about foreclosures and short sales. I want to talk about the distress market first. I haven't talked about that a lot lately because there hasn't been a ton of activity in that segment of our market. Quite honestly, there's just not a lot out there to choose from. But I want to talk about that first. I want to talk about new construction. I want to talk about luxury properties over $1 million here in our area. And then we're going to have Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage come in a little bit later on. He's going to ask us some questions and so on and so forth about credit. I have a few questions for him about how to build credit, what lenders are looking for when you're going to get a loan, how can you boost your credit score quickly. So stick around for that toward the end of the program with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. And again, any questions, you want to share a story with me, anything I can help you with, call into the studio. The number here, 843-556-1250. So let's talk about short sales and foreclosures first. You know, back several years ago, that used to be all of what I did because that's what was hot in our market. There were a ton of properties like that for sale, and the climate, of course, was much different. You know, now I sit down and I talk with sellers about selling their house, and it's good news most of the time. Prices are rising, inventory is lacking, and that creates an environment where prices start to increase. Well, think about it a few years ago when the market was on the decline, and it seemed like every meeting I had with the seller was, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you don't have any equity in your home. Have you considered a short sale? It was a very depressing time for a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money in real estate, especially if they had investment properties that were highly leveraged. So a lot of those properties ended up going back to the bank, or we ended up trying to do a short sale, and it represented a large segment of our market. Well, not so much anymore. If you look at just the statistics in South Carolina, 1 in every 858 people in South Carolina get foreclosed on. That number is drastically different from what it was several years ago. But if you look at bank-owned inventory, properties that have already been foreclosed on, and now the bank owns them and the bank is reselling them, they hire a listing agent to represent the bank, and they sell it as a foreclosure property. That amount of inventory is down 22% compared to year-to-date numbers in 2014. So there's just not a lot out there in terms of foreclosures. In fact, I have that breakdown for you. So if you look in Charleston County right now, out of 2,850 residential properties for sale, 28 of them are foreclosures. 1%. 28 of them are short sales, 1%. That's hardly anything. There are 56 properties available that represent foreclosures and short sales out of almost 3,000 houses. If you look in Berkeley County, numbers are a little bit different, but not much. We've got 1,139 properties available for sale in Berkeley County right now. 23 of them are foreclosures and 29 of them are short sales. So the percentage is a little higher in Berkeley County, but it's still not an astronomical number. You've got basically 52 properties available out of almost 1,200. And then in Dorchester County, we have 921 homes for sale. 14 of them are foreclosures and 25 of them are short sales. Not a lot in Charleston County when you compare it to Berkeley County and Dorchester County. And what we're seeing right now, especially for sellers that have, owned their home for the past 10 years or so. In fact, I'll give you a perfect example. I was hired to sell somebody's house in Berkeley County, and it's a sad story as to why they're selling the property. Won't get into details, but they need to sell their home. They need to sell their home now. And they interviewed 3 agents. They chose to work with me. And the frustrating thing about the process for these clients is that when they had 2 other real estate agents come in and they talked about the numbers, they talked about what's selling in the neighborhood to determine what their house is actually worth, they got a wide range of pricing in a neighborhood where it's essentially homes that are all 10 to 12 years old. They're all fairly similar. There's not a huge range in terms of what these properties are worth or what they sell for on a price per square foot basis. But they were getting pretty large ranges in terms of what they thought that they should sell their home for. So they came in and hired me, and obviously we've set a price that I think is going to sell their home and accomplish their goal. But the point I'm getting at is that they've owned their home for 10 years, and the price that they bought their house for isn't much different from what they're now having to sell their house for 10 years later. And that was a very difficult conversation for them to have with me, because they've owned their home for 10 years. You would think that after owning a property for a decade, that you would have some equity. Essentially, their home had raised in price enough to pay for commissions, pay for some closing costs, and break even. And that's it. And that's sad. But the reason for that, of course, is that if you look at the height of the market about 10 years ago when prices were inflated, and then the market crashed, prices went down, we have basically had this big pendulum swing of the market reducing, hitting the bottom, and now coming back up. Prices have been rising over the past 24 months or so. And we've finally gotten back in most places to the point where if you purchased it at the height of the market, it's worth about that price now. It was just a sad story, though. And so when I look at the foreclosure and short sale portion of our market, because we have such little inventory in that segment of our market, banks are not really willing to negotiate like they used to negotiate several years ago. See, when you had a bunch of inventory on the books that were foreclosures and short sales, banks needed to get rid of those things. They have no interest in owning real estate. Their interest is only in selling those assets so that they can recoup some of their cost and then move on. You have it as a deduction on their balance sheet and they move on. Well, because there's such little inventory right now, banks essentially have the ability to charge very close to fair market value for these properties. They are not going to sell a bank-owned home or short sale to you for 10 to 20% off fair market value. I'm just not seeing it right now. I'm sure that it happens every once in a while, once in a blue moon. But for the most part, if you're going to consider buying a short sale or foreclosure, and let's just use a scenario of where this property is in fairly good condition, it's really not in that bad of shape, they're going to want to sell it for pretty darn close to what it's worth. They're just not going to give you that huge percentage off of fair market value like they used to several years ago, which makes it really just begs the question, if you're going to wait around for 4, 6, 9, 12 months for a short sale, who knows how long some of these things take. I mean, I have a short sale that's been going on for almost 2 years, which is ridiculous. But if you're going to wait around that long for a short sale, why? That's the big question. Are you buying it for a good enough price to make sense out of waiting that long? Do you love the house that much that you're going to be willing to wait 6 months or so in order to buy that house. The one thing that I will say is that if you can lock into a price now on a short sale, and it takes 6 months or so to close, you get the benefit of today's pricing. Prices are increasing. So if you can buy it now, hopefully you make a little money. Once you close, you've got some instant equity. The other thing to think about, though, is what's going to happen to interest rates. If you lock into a property now and you have to wait 6 months for that property to close, you're going to be subject to interest rates at that point in time. You don't really have the ability to lock in your interest rate now and then wait 6 months. And that's something that we'll ask Bill Sandvig when he comes in a little bit later on. And again, I'm taking calls on this subject. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to share a story, the number here is 843-556-1250. But a lot of people have asked me, when is the next wave of foreclosures coming in? A lot of people like to use that term, the wave of foreclosures. Like we're going to have some huge tidal wave of foreclosures that's just going to decimate our market. I don't really see that happening, but this is why people are saying there's going to be a wave, quote unquote, of foreclosures. You have to look back several years ago, let's say 5-6 years ago, at a program called HAMP, which was the Home Affordable Modification Program. So for those that did not do a short sale, the idea was, well, why don't we just do a modification, give me a lower interest rate, extend the life of my mortgage, and give me a little bit of help here so that I can afford this home and keep this home rather than it going back to the bank or doing a short sale. And I'm going to take a pause for a quick moment because we've got Bill Sandvig calling in on the line. Bill, you there?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Hey, how are you?
I'm on my way in, and I heard your question about interest rates and getting them locked in and about 6 month time frame, so I thought I'd answer the question now.
Okay, great.
So you're exactly right. There's no ability to lock in an interest rate for a 6 month period. There are extended lock programs, but they're only with a new construction home. So extended lock programs are available, but it has to be a new build, a new construction where you can lock in for 6 to 9 months. If you were buying a short sale or a foreclosure, you're going to pay a lot to try and extend a lock for any more than 30 or 45 days.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something that we deal with whenever we sit down and we talk with buyers that are interested in short sales. And, we still get those types of calls now is, hey, I'm only interested in short sales or foreclosures because they perceive those to be the best deals in the market. And sometimes that's just not the case. But thanks for answering that question, because some of these short sales, I'm telling you folks, they can take a year or more. It really just depends on the seller's situation, what kind of distressed situation they have, and the ability of the listing agent or the attorney that the seller has hired to negotiate that short sale. There's a lot of work that goes into getting a short sale to the closing table. And if the listing agent or the attorney representing the seller doesn't have a very firm grasp on how to get from point A to point Z and handle all of the road bumps along the way, then it's going to take a long time. So,
yeah, without question.
So, Bill, I think you're coming in a little bit later on today. Is that correct?
I am. I'm on my way in.
Okay, great. Well, I have some more questions for you, and I'll talk to you then. And I'm going to finish up this thought on these wave of foreclosures that people are talking about. And so going back to what I was mentioning before we were talking to Bill, all of the modifications that we had several years ago, 5-7 years ago through HAMP, which is the Home Affordable Modification Program, are now at a point where they are going to start resetting. Those interest rates are going to start rising. And for the people that just haven't been able to improve their economic situation yet, it might be a situation where they're fighting to get back to status quo, and the rug's going to be pulled out from under them, and they just don't have the ability to get back to the point where they can afford that home at the price that they paid for it several years ago. And the statistic is about 40% of people that do modifications, of which we had about 2 million modifications at the bottom of the market, about 40% of those are estimated to just not work out. They're going to still be underwater. Those people are still going to be unable to afford those homes. And so that's where that perceived wave of foreclosures is going to potentially come from. And the banks are going to work it through their system. They're going to get those properties on the market because they have no interest at this point in time in holding those properties. They want to get them on the market. The market is ripe for selling foreclosures. And as I mentioned, those banks are going to want very close to what those properties are worth. They're just not going to sell them at ridiculous percentages off of fair market value. So stick around because we've got a lot more to talk about. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Again, call into the studio with questions, 843-556-1250, or reach out to me online, listingsincharleston.com. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. And again, if you have any questions or comments, you want to share a story, feel free to call me in the studio, 843-556-1250. And again, we rerun this show on Sundays at 10 a.m. So if it's Sunday and you're listening and you have a question, give me a call on my cell phone. My number is 843-345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. No cost, no obligation. If you're just looking to get some information, happy to help in any way I can. And if you're thinking about selling your house, go to my website again, listingsincharleston.com. Click on the Sell Your Home tab, and you can learn more about what I do to sell my homes for sale through my marketing plan. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So listingsincharleston.com, and the number here in the studio, 556-1250. So if you're just joining us, we were talking about foreclosures, short sales, and what's going on in that segment of the market. Really not a ton of activity. There's just not a lot for sale right now in that segment of our market. And I'll tell you a very quick story before I move on to talking about luxury properties. There was a luxury foreclosure that was listed for sale. It was about 10,000 square feet. And I had a client that wanted to buy it. They needed to sell their house first. So we constructed an offer that said that we want to buy this house. We will pay full price for this house. We just want you to give us 60 days to put our house under contract and sell it. And if we don't put our home under contract in 60 days, then you can put the property back on the market and you can take our earnest money. So obviously a huge risk for my client to put their house on the market, try and sell it in 60 days, or put it under contract in 60 days rather, and then move forward in buying that foreclosure. Well, the bank said, I am in no way, shape, or form going to take a contingent offer. The only way that you can buy this house is if you have cash or if you have the ability to afford the home you live in and also buy this house. We are not going to accept a contract contingent upon you selling your house, which was baffling because we were willing to give them their asking price. They just needed to give us 2 months. And oh, by the way, this house has been on the market for years, not months, years. Well, the bank ultimately rejected our offer. They said, sorry, we are not going to entertain an offer contingent upon the sale of your house. And then I looked in the MLS, and it's under contract for about $75,000 less than what we offered them. So that's a perfect example in my mind of banks and their stubbornness in this market as our market has gotten toward a seller's market in many areas of the Tri-County area. Banks, for the most part, are unwilling to negotiate. If they negotiate, they might give you a few percentage points below fair market value, but I just don't see banks giving people the 10+% off fair market value in this market on a consistent basis. You might find some here and there. The really good ones that you can find that you can get a good deal on still are the ones that are in really bad shape. So if you're an investor or if you're somebody that has the ability to flip a house or just put a bunch of money into it to use it as your primary residence or a second home, go for it. I think you're going to get a good deal more than likely, but for the average $200,000 house in a $200,000 neighborhood that's a foreclosure that's in pretty good condition, you're just not going to be able to get that great of a deal on it. So that's what I'm seeing right now. Again, questions, call me here in the studio, 843-556-1250. But let me shift gears and let me talk about luxury properties that are over $1 million in the Tri-County area. It's been a good start to the year in terms of properties that are over $1 million in our market. As our market has shifted more toward a seller's market and as inventory has reduced, and as upper class buyers have gotten back on their feet, they are now buying properties over $1 million, whether it be a primary residence or, of course, we have a ton of people that invest in Charleston as a second home location, and Charleston's a perfect place for it. Think about it. You've got Mount Pleasant. You have the beach at Isle of Palms. You have historic properties in downtown Charleston. You have equestrian properties on Johns Island. You have riverfront, waterfront properties. There's a incredible amount of different types of properties in our market if you're going to spend over $1 million in terms of what you can get. It really is a very diverse market here. And so if I look at some of the numbers, so far in the past 12 months, we've sold 380 properties over $1 million in our price range. If you compare that to 12 months prior to that, we sold 350. So we're selling more luxury properties. And if I look at an area like Isle of Palms as an example, so far we've had 57 closings this year. If you compare that to the first 4 months of 2014, there was only 43 sales. Now, I know that's not a huge number, a huge difference. It's a difference of 15 properties. But we haven't had as many new listings hit the market this year as we had last year. So just in terms of overall market dynamics for $1 million plus, the majority of our sales over $1 million are in Charleston County. Interestingly, over the past 12 months, I told you we had 380 homes that closed over $1 million. Almost all of them were in Charleston County. We had 50 in Berkeley County, and there was only one property, over the past 12 months that sold over $1 million in Dorchester County. So if you have $1 million home in Dorchester County, you're going to really need to figure out how to market that home, how to find that buyer, and sell the benefits. And that's what I want to talk about now. Is I had somebody contact me. They had a $4 million home. They want to know what I do differently to market properties in that price range. And so we talked about marketing. We talked about what people do in that price range to attract buyers. And for the most part, it's the same. You pay for professional photography. You do a nice video. You put it in magazines. You do professional print. You do all of those things to try and make sure that when people find that property, when buyers find that property, that the quality of the marketing matches the quality of the home. But the marketing, in my mind, really isn't that much of an issue because the majority of buyers, whether it be a $1 million or a $4 million or a $500,000 buyer, are going to search for properties the same way. They're going to go online. That's just what statistics say. There is no secret, magic, underground society where a $4 million buyer is going to go to this location to look for homes for sale. They might look in some sort of luxury publication because that's what they're used to reading, but they are not going to respond, in my mind, directly from that marketing piece in a magazine. They're going to find out that property's information, and then they're going to go online and they're going to research the heck out of it, just like every other buyer. So once they find the property online, then they either contact the listing agent for more information, or they seek out the services of an experienced agent that they feel can help them. So the way in which buyers search for real estate in this price range, whether it be $1 million, $4 million, $500,000, whatever, is virtually the same. The big question in luxury properties is value. Ultimately, that is the deciding factor in terms of whether or not you get contacted by that potential buyer. It's value. Now, some agents that specialize in $1 million plus properties have the ability to establish and enhance value. Some just don't. Some just aren't that great at it. But the ability to relate to the buyer, educate them about the market in a way that helps them understand why we're asking how much we're asking for the home, handling objections, being a good business person, so on and so forth. That's all part of the package that makes up a listing agent for that type of home. So what most sellers don't realize, though, is that agents that specialize in luxury properties have had to weather the storm over the past 5 to 8 years, just like the rest of the buyers that were in that price range have. So for me, as an agent that sells 100 homes a year or more, I chose to focus on a segment of the market where there's turnover, where I can sell a lot of real estate and make as much money as I can. I mean, that's the point of being in business, right? So now that we have this shift in the luxury market and we're seeing more buyers emerge that are now comfortable buying these types of homes, yes, they have the ability, but they have to be comfortable with spending that amount of money. They have to be comfortable knowing that the value that they're going to inject into that property is not going to be diminished a year later. So again, the question with luxury properties, if you're a buyer or if you're a seller, is how are you going to determine value and how are you going to display that value to the public in such a way that it makes sense for the consumer? That's the big question. We could do all the marketing in the world, but if the house is overpriced or if the seller doesn't have realistic expectations about the process, about the market, about the value of their home, then the marketing doesn't really matter. And that doesn't just apply to the luxury segment of our market. That applies to any house that you sell. At the end of the day, if your price isn't in line with buyers' expectations, it's just not going to sell. So, I've got more for you this morning. Bill Sandvig is here. We're going to talk with him in just a few minutes about how to improve your credit. If you're a first-time home buyer, what do you need to know about your credit score in order to buy a house? And we're also going to talk about new construction. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Again, feel free to reach out to me in the studio, 556-1250, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, for more information about working with me and my team. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. That's lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for joining me this morning as we talk about all things real estate here in the Low Country. Again, I'm your host, Brian Beatty. If there's anything that I can do to help you, you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I invite you to give me a call personally. My phone number is 843-345-1273, or contact me through my website, listingsincharleston.com, where you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, search the MLS, and if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about my marketing plan, and you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. It's pretty simple. I'll say that I will sell your house in less than 2 months, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. I am joined in the studio now by the one and only Mr. Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Brian. Thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Pleasure as always. We were just talking off air. You had a quick story that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so I was listening to the first half of the show and talking about how the banks aren't negotiating anymore. They're holding firm. They know they can hold their price because there's not a lot of inventory and foreclosure inventory out there. Well, I deal with a lot of real estate agents, do a lot of transactions, and here's the story that I'm hearing. And I think this ties in really well to some misconceptions about, we're in a seller's market. And a lot of times homeowners start to think when they're in a seller's market and they know that homes are selling fast, I can do this myself. I can just go ahead and list this thing and they're just going to come to me. Well, here's the story that I'm hearing from the buyer's agents. And it's, man, did I just get my client an incredible deal from this person trying to sell their own house. And they're coming in and they are out negotiating these people who don't do this for a living. They're recognizing that the house isn't priced right and they're taking advantage of them. And I'm surprised because when I know when a client goes to drive by one of your houses, you're holding firm. You're telling them if it's not going to be this, if we're not going to come down because we're going to have another offer right behind it. But these buyer's agents are going to these people trying to sell their own houses and they're getting 4% off the price still. They're getting 2% towards closing fees. And they come in the door and they're like, man, did I just take advantage of another person trying to sell their house? Mm-hmm. And I think that really speaks volumes that I'm kind of getting that feedback from buyer's agents that if you're out there thinking that you can do this yourself, you're going to get a better deal by having someone that does this for a living represent you, like Brian.
Yeah, well, and bottom line is this. Some for sale by owners have the ability to do it themselves. Most don't. And when we look at what it takes to sell a house as a for sale by owner, you've obviously got the marketing portion of it, which is creating the awareness for your house. That's incredibly challenging as a for sale by owner. But then the other side of the coin here is, how are you going to legitimately represent yourself and know that you're doing a good job when in reality, you're not a real estate agent. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so And look, I'm just going to say it like it is. I mean, I've told people on this program that I'm selling my house because I'm buying a for sale by owner. We're going to close on that property on June 1st. And I won't go into the specifics, but I'll say this. I think I'm getting a incredibly fantastic deal. And I would not have put my family and myself through the process of moving at a point in time in our market where it is just crazy busy if I didn't feel I was getting an enormous deal. And I am. So for those that are listening that are maybe considering selling their own home that want some help, I will very truthfully tell you that I have sold several homes over the past 6 months that were for sale by owners that listed with me, and we netted them more money at the closing table. And that's not a marketing pitch. That is truth. Because at the end of the day, you need somebody that can represent you, or you need to be comfortable with taking on the day job of being a real estate agent. Right. There's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
Now, Bill, you had contacted me a little earlier in the week, and you said that you wanted to share some information about building your credit, especially if you're a first-time home buyer or if you just have credit questions in general. So this would be a good time for those listening to call in the studio, 843-556-1250. And again, just a reminder, we rerun this show on Sundays. So if you have a personal question, call me at 843-345-1273. That's my cell. But Bill, tell us a little bit about what's most important when deciding to buy your first home from a credit standpoint.
Sure. So a very common question comes up all the time from agents, from buyers is, and what do I need to do to get in a position to where I'm ready to buy a house? And the rule of thumb that I share with people is there's a common misconception with credit that good credit is, and then there's good credit, there's no credit, and there's bad credit. And people think that it's better to have no credit than to have bad credit.
Right.
Well, that's actually not the case when it comes to mortgages. If you have no credit history, then you're going to be very limited in the programs that you can get as far as a mortgage. Mortgage companies and banks do not want to see your first financial obligation be a mortgage. They don't trust that. They don't feel like they have anything to make a decision on. And so they want to see some kind of history. So believe it or not, it's actually better from a mortgage standpoint. If you're going to rank the classifications of credit, it would be good credit being best, then bad credit, and then no credit.
Interesting.
So because I can take bad credit, I can look at it, I can identify it, and I can coach you to fix it. And usually it's a small couple things that we can do to fix that credit, clear off a small collection, pay down the balance of a credit card, and we can fix that bad credit in a relatively short time. No credit can't be fixed. We have to go and establish credit and wait sometimes up to 12 months before we can actually get you into a home. And so if you're out there listening and you have children or grandchildren who are kind of becoming of that age where they're about to be an adult, here's what I would do. Here's what I would do with them. Talk to your kids about this. Talk to your grandchildren about this. On their 18th birthday, the day they turn 18, this is what I'm going to be doing with my daughter. She's going to be turning 18 in less than 6 months. And on her 18th birthday, we are going to go for a birthday drive to the bank.
That sounds so much fun.
And we're going to go. And for just a couple $100, we're going to open up 2 secured credit cards in her name only. So she doesn't need to have credit to get a secured credit card. We're basically just fronting the line of credit. Small limits, $150, $200. But she's going to get these 2 secured credit cards. And what I'm going to coach her to do is, instead of paying for cash when you go to the gas station, you're going to use this blue credit card and you're going to pay for 1 tank of gas. Then the next day, we're going to pay it to 0. The next time you need gas, you're going to take this red credit card and you're going to go buy a tank of gas and you're going to pay it to 0. So now what we're doing is we're showing that she's using credit and using it responsibly. Banks don't want to just see that you have it. They want to see that you're using it. So those small little charges, never letting that balance go above half of what the limit of the card is, and then paying it to 0, is going to quickly develop a positive credit history for her. We're also going to go and get her a car loan, a very small car loan. And it's going to have a 10 or 12 or 13 or 14% interest rate because she has no credit history. But we're going to finance maybe only $1,500. We're going to stretch it out over 6 years. And she's going to have a little tiny $35 a month car payment. So my 18-year-old on her 18th birthday, will have a $35 car payment in her name only, and she'll have 2 credit cards in her name. By the time she's 19, she'll have 3 accounts with a 12-month history, and I would expect her credit score to be in the mid-700s at 19, because she won't have any negative credit, will have been building that credit, and by the time she's 19, she could actually go buy a house. And just so happens that she actually works part-time. By the time she's 19, she'll have 2 years of part-time working history, and she only makes $500 or $600 a month. Well, I've talked about it before. I could take that $500 or $600 a month, put her into a multi-unit property where we're using the rental incomes from those other units, and my 19-year-old daughter, with a $35 car payment and a $600 a month income, could theoretically qualify for a $300,000 purchase for a 4-unit property and rent out the other 3 units and live in the other.
Pretty crazy stuff when you think about it. Happy birthday, honey. Here's some debt.
That's right. I mean, that's the plan. And if you're out there listening, it doesn't have to be an 18-year-old. You can build your credit in the exact same way. If you're out there and you don't have a credit history, or if you have bad credit history, people don't know that the credit score is 2/3 good and then 1/3 bad. So good credit severely outweighs bad credit. So if you have bad credit, what you want to do now is go out and create some new credit. And you do that with secured credit cards. The secured credit cards that we talked about. It's only going to take you a couple $100s to open up a couple lines and start using them very minimally, paying them off, and you're going to see your credit scores jump. That is the advice that I give people. It's good credit, bad credit, no credit. Go out there and start establishing that good credit as soon as you can. Do it now. Talk to your kids about it, because you set your kids out on the right credit track and they're going to be in a better spot for the rest of their lives. I mean, They really are.
Right. That's great information. Well, thank you very much for that, Bill. I'll tell you what, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about new construction, what's going on in that segment of our market, all that and more. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in at the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. This is the point of the program where I like to say thank you for anybody that listens to this program, and for those of you that contact me with some sort of interest in real estate, whether you need help, you have a general knowledge question, or you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing, contact me. Let's see if we can work together. My number is 843-345-1273. That's my cell phone. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, and you can learn more about myself, my experience, and if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. So I wanted to finish up this program talking about new construction. And when people hire an agent to help them in purchasing a new construction property, it used to be a few years ago that builders would negotiate. And if you think about it, in a declining market, a builder is more interested in offering some sort of incentive, whether they give you a break on the upgrades that you do or closing costs, or they're paying a 6% commission to agents, whatever the case might be. The market dynamics then versus the market dynamics now have vastly shifted the way in which new construction communities behave when it comes time to actually make an offer. So let me tell you a very short story. I've been working with a client for about a week on a new construction property. He's building the biggest house in there. He's going to basically trick it out with every option that you can find. I mean, a dream buyer for the builder, right? They're going to make a lot of money off of him when they sell the most expensive home they've sold to date. Well, last Sunday they went in there and we talked about all the things that we want to do, and he had some special requests. I want to put hardwood floors throughout the entire house, do this, that, and the other. So the builder said, well, we don't have that sort of pricing together yet, so it's going to take us a few days in order to do that. And I said, okay, great. Well, can we write up an offer contingent upon us receiving that pricing And it will just be up to the buyer as to whether or not he's comfortable with the prices you've put on those upgrades or not. If he doesn't like that and he wants to back out of the agreement, then he has the right to do that. Well, the builder said, no, that's not how we do things. You have to put down $10,000 in earnest money, and regardless of whether you like those upgrades or not, you have to at least be locked in to the base price of the house. So you need to make a decision right now about whether you want to move forward and buy this property or not, and it's just up to you as to whether you want to put in those upgrades. But you can't back out of this agreement once you sign that contract to give us your earnest money. Buyer wasn't comfortable with that. I told him, hey, I would not be comfortable with that either. We need to find out whether or not you actually want to move forward and build this house before we put $10,000 at stake. Well, it takes several days to get the pricing back on the things they want to do to the house. We schedule a time to go and write up a contract. They've decided that they want to move forward regardless. And then we said, all right, so we're going to be at the location at 11 o'clock. We're going to walk back through the model. We're going to walk the lot. And then we're going to meet you in your office at 11:30 to write the contract. We get there at 11. We start to do that. At 11:15, I'm not kidding about this. At 11:15, we get a phone call from the site agent that says, hey, you're not going to like this, but the builder just decided to raise the lot premium on all lots $4,000. So now the property that we've been looking at and that we've been waiting on the builder for is now $4,000 more.
Wow.
And, oh, by the way, every base price has now increased $1,500. We're not going to charge you the $1,500, but there's nothing we can do about the lot premium increase. Obviously, that rubbed my buyer the wrong way. And so we're sitting down, we're going through the contract, and they're not budging on a single thing. There is zero negotiability. The only thing that they're going to allow is for the buyer to break up his earnest money in sections rather than just deposit a $10,000 check now. He's going to give segments over the course of 2 months. And so one of the questions he had was, you're offering to pay my closing costs with the use of your preferred lender. And so, Bill, my question for you is, what is the difference between the builder offering closing costs to a buyer with the use of a preferred lender versus the buyer just using their own lender?
Sure. So there's a couple of things going on there. The builder, first and foremost, is protecting their margin or protecting their profitability, because the preferred lender relationship, the lender is the one that is taking a larger cut typically. So it's a combination of the two. The builder is going to sacrifice some net proceeds on the sale, but also the lender, the preferred lender themselves, is also going to give up profitability on that loan. And so the builder, the reason why they give up a little bit is because they want to have a known process. They want the lender who's working for them, not for the buyer, right? The lender cares about the builder because they're the ones that are getting the repeat business from. And they want that control over that lender. They want to have that one point of contact. They want to have the expected result and be able to track that buyer over the course of a 6, 7, or 8 month build. So that's why the builder gives up a little bit. But the other reason is because they can make you feel as a buyer that you're getting a $4,000 or $5,000 incentive, but the lender might be throwing in $2,500 of it or $3,000 of it. And so the lender is actually the one that's giving you that push or making you feel like you're getting something.
Do you typically find that the preferred lender in new construction communities is actually charging a slightly higher interest rate or slightly higher closing costs than normal to just inflate and account for that?
Yeah, there are many companies that do that. And I'm not going to name a few, but there's a very common place for builders that have their own lender, like a lender that they own, where they'll give you an incentive, but then they'll charge you an origination point to cover that incentive. And typically in our market, I never quote an origination point when I'm doing a loan. There's no origination. Which
is typically what, 1%?
1% of the loan.
Right.
So if you're buying of this $400,000 house, then you're going to get charged to save.
Right. Well, I tell you what, we need to take a break, and we'll come back next weekend with a lot more information about the Charleston real estate market. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing, give me a call personally. My number is 843-345-1273. or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, and would love the opportunity to help you with your real estate needs. Again, this is Brian Beatty and the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, Charleston.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.